right here in Lancaster on the banks of the Susquehanna. And the port to this major city was going to be at Safe Harbor, which is pretty interesting, the same place where these petroglyphs are. It seems like a lot of people are kind of drawn to this area. Now, obviously, there is no New Philadelphia. And so what William Penn didn't know was fun fact number 3, and that's that the Susquehanna is the longest non-navigable river in the United States. And so you can't get a boat of any real size very far, before you hit rocks or something. And so some kind of interesting facts there just about the Susquehanna where these petroglyphs are hidden.
That is so neat. That's something that I didn't know myself. And I'm sure people who are, purchasing boats and are trying to get them, back to where they live. This is important to know that you might not want to take your yacht or your charter cruise line up the Susquehanna.
I see some boats down there and I'm like, man, you are nuts. I mean, the only way to reach these petroglyphs is either by canoe or kayak. And I constantly, when I go out, I'm constantly, bunking rocks depending on the water level. And so there's like 3 main challenges to getting to the petroglyphs there at Safe Harbor. So one, like I said, you've got to have a kayak or a canoe. You're not just going to drive up and like walk over and take a look at it. So you're going to be out there, you got to fight the current, and it can be pretty serious depending on how much water is coming out of Safe Harbor Dam. And so, there's challenge number 1. Challenge number 2 is just actually finding it. Like you can look on Google and people right now are probably, we Google, these. And so, Big Indian Rock and Little Indian Rock are the name of the 2 places, and Google lists it, but spoiler alert, it's not right. It's not even close. I've been there looking for it. And I was like, oh, this isn't at all the right place. And so, you get out there on the Susquehanna River below Safe Harbor, and there are dozens of giant boulders, any one of which could be, Big Indian Rock and Little Indian Rock of where you're looking for. So, challenge 2 is just simply finding the correct rocks that you need to go and visit. Now, so, you get a kayak and you get out there and then you actually find the rock. The third challenge is actually like revealing the petroglyph, because if you're not careful, it's easy to just totally miss them. And so for that, you need a very special tool, and that's a sponge. And so you take a sponge and you wet it and you rub this wet sponge over the petroglyphs, and that reveals this carved image on the rock. And it's really neat. It's like a scene right out of, National Treasure, where Benjamin Gates is, revealing the secret images by using a wet sponge. And so that's always a really neat thing to go out there and do
writing or invisible ink.
Exactly. And so, these are made by like prehistoric people. They don't have a written language. And so they are drawing the things that they see in their everyday lives. And so there's lots of animal tracks. There's bear and deer and turkey tracks. And then they're drawing actual animals. And so there's like a fox and a deer. There's a turtle. There's a couple snakes. They're drawing themselves. There's a person in a canoe, and there's another person holding a bow, and then a third person, holding a stick or a club or something like that. And so they're kind of drawing the things that they see in their everyday lives. But what's really cool about it is some people think, well, is it just like graffiti? There's no internet, there's no, cell phones or Xbox, 1,000 years ago. Like, what does a bored Native American teenager? Like, I don't know, go out and carve on the rock. But, so it's not just senseless graffiti. And to prove that point, there's 2 clusters. And so one is these 2 squiggly lines. And so, is it 2 snakes or is it a riverbank? We're not sure. But the cool thing about it is on the equinox sunrise, it lines up perfectly with those 2 squiggly lines. So the sun comes up and right on those 2 spots. And then just at a slightly different angle is a single squiggly line. So again, is this a smaller, body of water, like maybe the Conestoga, or is it just a single snake? But on the winter solstice sunrise and the summer solstice sunset, the sun rises and sets right there on those lines. And so, these are definitely made by people that are very in tune with their environment and, are fully aware of the world going on around them, enough that they know like where the sun is going to be, on the equinox, on the solstice. And, these are important things to them, which is really cool, I think.
Do you feel that some of the stories or some of the carvings could be a storyline or them trying to write down their history as well?
It could be. There's a lot of theories on it. Some people think that it's a pretty significant location, so it could be like a marker of the territory. Like this is, you know, where our boundary ends, and so you know, if you come any farther, you're not. There's one where there is. It looks like a snake, and it looks like it swallowed a turtle. And so, does that mean like the snake tribe of Native Americans defeated the turtle tribe? Like that could be what that means. There's another one where there's a cluster of people, and they think that's sort of representing how far away, basically, like the Chesapeake Bay is. And so, oh, it's you know, two guys, and so that means it would take, you know, 2 days of walking to get there. So maybe kind of a marker of how far to the next place to see. But you know, you're down there on the Susquehanna, and you've got all these hills surrounding you. And again, there's would have been no lights back then, and so this perfect place to, you know, see the constellations and to see the sun come up and the moon come up. And what I think is the neatest thing about it is when I go out there, and I've been out there a few times, and if you stand on the rock and look west towards York County, the view hasn't changed in 1,000 years. I mean, it's all forest. There's no power lines. You can't see any houses when you look directly in front of you. And in that moment, I think, wow, I'm seeing probably the exact same thing that one of our ancestors saw in this very spot. I mean, I know for a fact someone stood here hundreds of years ago, 1,000 years ago, and we're seeing the same thing. And, you know, and in that moment, I feel connected to this person. I've never met them, but here we are in the same spot, looking west, you know, into the sunset. And it's a neat experience that I'm like, wow, I know that this person was here just like I am. And maybe 1,000 years from now, another person, more people are going to stand here and look west, and we're going to have this shared experience, which I think which is really neat and amazing.
Well, I think history is so fascinating, but also, like you said, the connectivity piece, knowing that you are witnessing something that people years and years ago did, and people years from now will. That connectivity piece, more than ever during COVID, I think is such a valuable moment